Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Artem. How are
Hey,
you?
how's it going? Good, good. How are you?
I put up a question for you. If you could make, I assume there's a direct correlation between being enlightened and being present and fully present in the moment, or some sort of gradation of presence in the moment. Can you talk about what it's like to feel present in the moment?
You said you put up a question also somewhere in writing, or?
Oh, I just put a chat up. Oh, I guess it's private chat. So,
Oh, yeah, I see that in private
oh,
chat. Yes.
sorry.
Can you describe what it's like to be fully present at the moment? Okay, I see. Yes, there's certainly a correlation. So the deeper you go on the spiritual path, the more you're present in the moment, and the less the mind takes you to either the past or the future. How the presence actually feels changes somewhat, right? So presence is also the first thing to be found, right? So people can describe it in a variety of different ways. Some would call it consciousness, some would call it awareness, some would call it being, right? So the presence, which is much deeper than the ego, which is in the background of all the egoic activity, which is always have been there, like since the moment you were born, the one thing that has never changed, and you can call it by many names. You can say consciousness, right? But from the moment you were born, it's always been present. So this is the first thing that is found actually on the spiritual path, and it can be so the nature of this presence is all accepting, is ever present, and it feels much deeper than ego. So it feels like a much deeper identity. And initially, this identity of being becomes very pronounced, and it sort of becomes the forefront of experience. So in the dream state, in the egoic state, you're very much concerned with all the egoic activity in the mind, right? So there's the self-image. There are thoughts about the past, the future. There's all sorts of emotions, and this is you, and this is like the most important thing. And then the identity switches from that into something that is underneath that: consciousness, presence, being, however you name it. And those things, and you realize that this has always been you, and all of the egoic activity happens inside it, happens in you. It's not you, it happens in you. Like the voice in your head is not you, it happens in you. And so this presence becomes very pronounced. And how it feels like, it depends on the depth of the realization, but generally speaking, this presence is the source of peace, calmness, bliss, authentic joy, authentic pleasure. It's appreciation of life, satisfaction, all of it. It's our very nature, right? So life is beautiful, blissful, and joyful by nature. It's supposed to be this way. So it can be very blissful. It can be extraordinary, beautiful. I myself spent, I would say, like a few years just enjoying it. Just sitting and simply enjoying my own presence, my own being. Now, as you go deeper and deeper, there's something else that is happening, because this presence, this consciousness, it's not merely the presence to the outside world. which is it's a big part of it. And that's also why on the spiritual journey, you know, things start becoming more beautiful, sounds become more beautiful, your bodily sensations become more beautiful and enjoyable and acute. So yes, so the presence towards everything else increases, but it's also the presence towards your own mind. So from this new vantage point, from this point of awareness that doesn't shy away from anything, a deeper exploration into the egoic suffering, into the nature of the mind starts to happen. So emotions, the suppressed emotions come up more intensely. You can get exposed to a lot of mental activity you weren't exposed before. So the madness of the mind, how the mind tries to analyze everything from multiple points of view and doesn't want to let go, and you know how he likes to like grab a bone and just chew it and chew it and chew it, and as this happens, there are some uncomfortables, there are some emotions. For this presence also with time uncovers the bodily tensions, because as we meditate, we not only see how much suppressed emotions exist in us, but also how tense the body is. It correlates, you know, because we tense up our bodies in order to restrict ourselves, in order to restrict our expressions. So it's the same very presence that engages in deeper exploration of the unconscious suffering of the ego. And as that happens, of course, we feel more suffering, we feel much more emotional, we feel our tensions, but this, it's also this very presence, because it's your very being that heals those things and facilitates a deeper and deeper relaxation into itself. So at a certain stage, when this relaxation is deep enough, and when there's not a lot of unconscious, well, it's not unconscious. Okay, let me put it this way. When there's not a lot of unconscious egoic suffering to bring up to the level of consciousness, to bring up and explore be explored by this presence, at a certain point of time, this presence as a very pronounced percept of the mind also starts to dissolve. So as someone would say, you know, the nature of presence is also empty. So then in the end, it actually feels quite natural. It feels quite normal. There's no like specific thing in your experience which you can point your finger to and say, well, this is my presence, right? Or some people would say, experience without a center. So it just becomes natural. It just becomes ordinary, and you can't really say how it feels like, because it doesn't feel like anything. you know. So some people said very paradoxical things, which are also true. Like I think in the autobiography of Ajani, I read something like. Ajani is aware, and also he's not aware. So basically, it just ends up being ordinary human life without any unnecessary activity of the mind or suffering. And of course, we can talk about that in this ordinary human life, there's beauty all around. That the experience of the body, the experience of the senses is very pleasurable unless you're in pain. All senses, like hearing, feeling, vision, they're all pleasurable. They're all beautiful, and there's no suffering in the mind, and the mind is more or less silent. But there's no like specific center that you would say, okay, this is my being, you know. So that's been my experience, and that's been the experience of pretty much anyone who ventured deep enough, from what I have read.
So that seems to me the key. It's a process. It's
Yes.
going deeper, because a lot of what you hear so-called enlightened people speak about, it's just constant bliss, and that doesn't seem to be the case necessarily.
No,
There's a
no,
lot of dross to be burned off.
that's right. Yes, actually, and many people said the same thing, that the destination is not bliss. Bliss is actually also gone at some point. So, so my experience with bliss, and the way that I describe it is very simple. Every experience is fundamentally relative. I do not have access to your experience. You have no access to my experience. So all we can do is describe it, right? So what bliss is actually, it's a necessarily relative description of the way that you feel right now compared to how you felt before.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were miserable and then you disidentify with the ego, it's such a relief and it is so pleasurable that the only way that you can describe it is bliss, right? And so, and as you go through more unconscious suffering and you let go of them, there would be another wave of bliss. But sooner or later, you get used to it, right? So a person who speaks about how blissful he is for 10 years is a liar. You know, if you've been blissful for 10 years, how are you still talking about it? It's supposed to be so ordinary for you at this point, you know? So because the mind gets used to any experience. So, so the bliss is sort of a reward. It's the other side of suffering. So you were suffered a lot and now you don't suffer. And that's experienced as bliss. But you get used to it. And then if there is any more suffering, unconscious suffering, then you might, as you go deeper or you meditate or life brings it up and you experience some of that and then you let go of it or you integrate it or you accept it. It's all the same thing. And there's even more bliss. There's even more bliss. But then you get used to it. And so ultimately bliss is replaced by lightness, by, in a way, you can even describe it as coldness of experience, but not a coldness in a sort of a negative way, right? Not like I'm being cold to this human being, but by lightness of experience. So ultimately, bliss also goes away. Yes, but it's very easy to get stuck in bliss
Or attached to it.
Yes, get attached to it, and many people make the same mistake, right? So they think that you know, whenever something uncomfortable is coming up, they think that they're doing something wrong, and they want to go back to bliss or recreate some sort of a blissful experience. It never works for long enough periods of time. It cannot.
You know, and along that lines too, I hear a lot about how the ego starts to dissolve or disappear, and it sounds like such BS to me that I can't imagine that my ego is ever going to disappear. It seems like you just recognize it for what it is. In many ways, you become more fully yourself in the context of this persona that I can't imagine it's anything except part of our DNA, quite honestly. I don't know. It just seems like it's, I don't even have this desire to break down the ego anymore. It's more of a sense of living with it like any other aspect of this body. I don't know.
Well, it's up to you. But I'm also one of those people who says that the ego disappears, and in my experience, it does disappear. It does disappear. So my experience is that the spiritual journey is the journey of dissolving ego into love. But we also need to be precise with regards to what the ego really is.
Okay.
Right? If we talk about the ego as, if we think that the ego is the body, then it's never going to disappear. So it disappears as in a temporary meditation experience. This is true. So you may have a lot of experiences where it literally feels like the body disappears and all that you experience is pure consciousness. And I've had tons of those experiences. And moreover, this is pretty much how I fall asleep. So it just becomes a very ordinary experience. It's not something profound. But the ego is not the body, actually. When I fall asleep, all that's going on is that I'm losing awareness of my body. It doesn't mean that my body is no longer there. Even if I'm like in the deepest meditative trance, which I'm no longer capable to do, but many people can. If they're like in the deepest meditation trance and they experience themselves as pristine awareness, consciousness, they completely lose awareness of the body, and I hit them with a stick, they're gonna open their eyes, hey, here's your body,
Right.
So the ego is not the body.
But maybe I'm thinking more along the lines of the personality. I mean, you're identifiable
Yes.
as who you were 20
Yes.
years ago.
The ego is personality. Yes. So the ego is personality, but what is personality? A personality is basically a combination of your kind of automatic reactions in social interactions with other people. That's what personality is. And they're automatic. They are unconscious. Like, for example, if you have a domineering personality, then you automatically try to put yourself above other people, and you do it unconsciously in all sorts of ways. And everyone who gets who starts talking to you, it will be quite obvious to them that you have a domineering personality because you sort of show it, and in a lot of ways you show it without noticing. So, and the same thing can be said about submissive personality. Or other aspects. We can just, like, for example, agreeableness or argumentativeness and other aspects of personality. So this actually does disappear because all of the personality and the automatic reactions that we have to other people, it is supported by emotional resistance, basically. So like for someone with a domineering personality, for example, they feel good and safe. They feel safe. They feel in control when they can dominate another person. And when they are being dominated, they feel very anxious, and they really don't like that. So, and the same way we can give an example of, of a submissive personality. So that feels safe and familiar, right? And if they were to assert themselves over someone, they would feel fear. It would be uncomfortable for them. They're not used to that, right? They would be afraid of another person's aggressive reaction. So the way that personalities interplay with each other in the mind is through emotional response. Like some people call it energy, you can call it emotional energy, and some of this energy is very pleasing, and some of this energy is very difficult. It's difficult to experience, it's difficult to accept. So we could even look at Buddhism and as they talk about clinging and avoidance, right? So we can speak of it as clinging to good or familiar or safe sort of, so to say, emotional experiences, and trying to avoid bad emotional experiences. Trying to, like, if you really don't like your anger, you'll try to avoid anger. If you don't like your fear, you will try to avoid fear. So the way that we cling to this personality and we try to maintain this personality is exactly through avoiding of emotional experiences which we perceive as unpleasant. So we try to maintain it. So in enlightenment, this sort of personality, this castle of personalities starts to collapse, which doesn't mean that you lose your individuality, right? So it's important not to confuse the two, and it's actually not very difficult to not confuse them. Like, for example, if you like apples, If you tell me I like apples, it would be kind of strange to me to describe it as your personality. Is it your personality? No, of course not, right? Or you like doing certain things, or you like painting, or like something like that, or you like walking, or you like a certain color. Is that your personality? No. Your personality is how you behave with other people, what expectations you have of them on the emotional level, and how you want to be seen by them, how you want to be presented to them. And the personality is actually also the source of all interpersonal conflict, because if you look closely, then you will notice that most of our interpersonal conflict is when another person doesn't see us the way that we want to be seen.
Right. Persona as mask.
Yes. Really. Yes. So just, speaking, like coming back to the question about narcissists, right? If you're a narcissist and you want to be seen as a very smart, intelligent, sophisticated person, and someone treats you as a fool from a village, it will be extremely offensive to you, right? So that's a personality. So the deeper you sort of cling and attach to how you want to be seen, and not just by others, but by yourself, right, the harder it is for you to actually see you as you are at every given moment. So we can speak about enlightenment as a permission that you give to yourself to be exactly as you are at any given moment, regardless of how other people want you to be, or regardless of what they think of you. And every one of us is perfectly capable of exhibiting all aspects of all personalities. It's situational, right? In some situations, you can be agreeable. In some situations, you can be argumentable. You can be angry. You can be very loving and tender. You have the capacity to be any facet, any aspect of human personality. So personality is just a mode of behavior, so to speak. It's an automatic unconscious behavior. So as you make all of this behavior conscious, and more importantly, as you make conscious the automatic tendency to reject, to avoid a certain energetic emotional experience within you, and then you see that it's exactly through this avoidance you behave in an unconscious manner automatically by falling prey to it. Like for example, if you're a person who has a tendency to get angry at everybody and like has angry outbursts, then if this person sees how much avoidance of anger he actually has, how uncomfortable it is for this person to simply feel anger without doing anything about it, then he will notice that his angry outburst is a futile attempt to prevent it. Like it's a futile attempt to control other people so that he doesn't feel bad when anger comes. And the same thing can be said not just about anger, but pretty much about anything else. Right. So that's how our personality controls us. So yes, if we define ego as personality, then it does tend to dissolve. And the more conscious we become about how we try to orchestrate our experience of life by trying to create certain experience within us and avoid unpleasant experience within us, the more we see how it literally controls our life, how it literally we engage in automatic behaviors that doesn't necessarily serve us, doesn't necessarily serve other people. So that is the ego, and it does tend to behave. It doesn't mean that and it does tend to dissolve. It doesn't mean that you cannot express all aspects of personality. You absolutely can, but you make it consciously. You understand what's going on. You understand why you behave this way. It's not sort of automatic knee-jerk reaction. So the automatic knee-jerk egoic reaction is always a reaction to pain. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, if you notice yourself behaving automatically in certain situations and in a suboptimal manner, in a manner that is not best for you, or in a manner that is not best for someone else, Well, try behaving differently and see what happens, you know? Because most likely, if you just try behaving differently, there will be a lot of displeasure inside. That's a personality.
Well, and basically what it comes down to, I guess, is that that allows you an opportunity to recognize these things and let them go. And
yes, so awareness or being or consciousness, this part of yourself which is always there and isn't afraid of any internal experience, is exactly, yes, what gives us the opportunity to recognize ourselves, to recognize it, to see where it's coming from, to explore and accept the pain that it's coming from. And then we become freer in our behavior and more conscious in our behavior.
Yeah, well, that's helpful. It's illuminating. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Appreciate that. All right.
It's my pleasure, my friend. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.